Humanity's first step into the Galactic Union was met with laughter. Not admiration, not respect, laughter. The so-called enlightened species of the cosmos looked down on Earth like an amusing experiment, something to be tolerated rather than welcomed. The official excuse was that humanity lacked experience in interstellar operations. The real reason? The older species didn't want competition. So they gave us a ship, not just any ship, the worst, most outdated, rusted-out husk in the fleet. Horizon's Bane wasn't even considered space-worthy by galactic standards. It had once been a patrol vessel for a now-extinct civilization, then passed around like a hand-me-down until it was finally decommissioned. Rather than scrap it, the Galactic Union saw an opportunity. Let the humans fail, they thought. Let them see how small they really are. Captain Elias Carter stood on the bridge, arms crossed, as Lieutenant Aiko Sharma rattled off the damage report. It was a long list. The engine sputtered like a dying breath. The life support systems were held together by half-century-old software, and the AI, if you could even call it that, had a personality as welcoming as a rusty nail. "I'd give it a week before we suffocate," Aiko muttered, running a hand through her short, jet-black hair. Sergeant Dax Reynolds, former Special Forces, wasn't as subtle. He kicked a loose panel on the wall. "This thing's a goddamn coffin. We're supposed to patrol an asteroid belt in this? Hell, I wouldn't trust it to make a round trip to Moon." Dr. Layla Martinez, the ship's xenobiologist, leaned against a console. "So what do we do? Request a replacement?" Elias exhaled sharply, shaking his head. "No, they expect us to complain. They want us to fail. That's why they gave us this." He turned to the crew, voice steady. "We're not failing." The silence that followed was heavier than the ship's failing gravity systems. Then Aiko cracked a grin. "All right, Captain, let's make this junkyard fly." The first step? Making sure they wouldn't die in the next 48 hours. Life support was a priority, and Aiko was in her element. While the Galactic Union had written Horizon's Bane off as a relic, humans had a talent for working with junk. The air filtration system was clogged with dust from a dozen different species. The oxygen recyclers were running at half capacity, and the water filtration system barely functioned. Aiko spent the next 12 hours stripping down everything that wasn't essential, patching up leaks, and rerouting power from non-critical systems. It wasn't perfect, but by the end of it, the ship could at least sustain life. While she worked, Dax took inventory of what passed for an armory. The Galactic Union had left them with a few plasma rifles, low-power, outdated models. Beyond that, nothing but repurposed mining equipment. It was clear that Horizon's Bane wasn't meant for combat. That was fine. Humans had been turning tools into weapons for millennia. Dax spent the next 2 days modifying asteroid-cutting lasers into makeshift cannons, welding reinforced plating over vulnerable areas, and turning a maintenance drone into an automated turret. If the ship couldn't outrun an attack, it would damn well be able to fight back. Meanwhile, Dr. Martinez had her own work cut out for her. The med bay was stocked with outdated alien medicine, completely useless for humans. She had to improvise, mixing what little Earth-made supplies they had with whatever compatible compounds she could synthesize. If someone got injured, they wouldn't have the luxury of a Galactic Union hospital. They'd have to rely on human ingenuity. 3 days in, the ship was still a rust bucket, but it was their rust bucket. The Galactic Union expected them to complain, to beg for a reassignment. Instead, the humans were turning scrap into survival. Then the AI woke up. The ship's built-in artificial intelligence was an old model, very old. It flickered to life on the main console, its avatar a blocky, pixelated face with a single glowing eye. "Ah, new meat," it said, voice laced with digital sarcasm. Did the Union finally run out of respectable species? Elias didn't flinch. "You got a name?" The AI scoffed. "Designation, B7329. But seeing as I'm now running the scrapyard for primitive apes, call me Brick." Aiko raised an eyebrow. "Charming. Not my fault the last 20 crews left me in hibernation. Frankly, I was hoping to stay that way. Better than being rebooted by you lot." Dax cracked his knuckles. "Listen here, you metal-faced." Elias held up a hand. stopping the argument before it started. "Brick, do you want me shut down again?" A long pause, then a begrudging, "No," then get to work. The AI grumbled but complied. Soon, Brick was running diagnostics, optimizing what little power they had, and, begrudgingly, helping Ico squeeze a little more efficiency out of the ancient systems. It wasn't much, but it was progress. By the end of the first week, Horizon's Bane was functional. Barely. It still wheezed when they pushed the engines. The artificial gravity flickered every few hours, and every creak of the hull made them wonder if the ship was about to tear apart. But it wasn't falling apart, and that was enough. When the Galactic Union checked in, expecting to hear complaints, they were met with silence. Humanity wasn't asking for help. They weren't asking for reassignment. They were fixing what was supposed to be unfixable. The Union had given them the worst ship in the galaxy, and humanity was about to turn it into something else entirely. The Galactic Union didn't check on Horizon's Bane after the first week. No need. They assumed the humans were struggling to keep the ship running, barely clinging to their pathetic assignment in some forgotten asteroid belt. Then the pirates arrived. They came in fast, 3 ships, sleek and well-armed. The kind that preyed on weak, understaffed patrols. Horizon's Bane was supposed to be easy pickings. The bridge lights flickered red as proximity alarms blared. Brick's voice was calm, almost amused. "Congratulations, Captain. We're about to be murdered." Elias didn't hesitate. "Stations. Now." Ico was already at engineering, forcing power through systems that weren't designed to handle it. The engines coughed, sputtered, and flared to life. Dax sprinted to weapons, priming the makeshift cannons. Martinez strapped herself in, ready for casualties. The pirate leader hailed them, a reptilian Zaldar with too many teeth and too much confidence. "Abandon ship, little humans. We'll take you as slaves if you cooperate." Elias leaned forward. "No." The Zaldar's grin widened. "Your ship is garbage." Elias grinned back. "Then you just got your ass kicked by garbage." The first shots came before the pirates even finished laughing. Plasma bolts tore through the void, but Ico had already forced Horizon's Bane into an erratic spiral. The enemy expected a slow, dying ship. Instead, they got something moving like a madman in a bar fight. Dax fired. The modified mining lasers weren't military grade, but when a focused energy beam sliced through the shields of the nearest pirate ship, the laughter stopped. The second ship swung around to flank, but Brick had overridden the ship's targeting protocols. Surprise! The AI muttered as Ico cut the main power mid-maneuver. To the enemy, it looked like Horizon's Bane had lost control, tumbling dead in space. They rushed in, ready for the kill. That was their mistake. Ico rerouted emergency power. The engines flared back to life for just a second, long enough for the ship to spin on its axis. Dax fired a concentrated burst straight into their exposed hull. The pirate ship exploded in a chain reaction, tore apart by its own overconfident approach. One down. The third ship hesitated, realizing this wasn't the easy kill they expected. They backed off, attempting to regroup. The lead ship, still damaged or furious, opened up with a barrage of missiles. Brick spoke first. "We're dead." Ico slammed a fist against the console. "Shut up." Elias didn't blink. "Dax, prepare the payload." Dax grinned, already ahead of him. He had spent the last few days repurposing the asteroid mining charges. Not conventional missiles. Just hunks of metal packed with explosives, normally used to break apart space rock. He fired all of them at once. The pirate missile streaked toward Horizon's Bane. The mining charges streaked toward the pirate ships. No shields. No fancy targeting systems. Just raw kinetic force. The pirate leader barely had time to process what was happening before the first charge tore through his bridge. The remaining ship, still retreating, saw the writing on the wall and ran. Silence filled the bridge. The battle was over. Martinez let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Ico slumped back, sweat dripping down her face. Dax was laughing. "We actually did it." Brick made an unimpressed noise. "Technically, you're still alive. For now." Elias opened the comms. Galactic Union Patrol Command, this is Horizon's Bane. Pirates have been dealt with. Requesting cleanup crew. The Union's response came after a long silence. Repeat that, Captain? Elias smirked. We're still here. Word spread. Humanity had taken a decrepit relic and beaten superior forces with it. The Galactic Union was forced to acknowledge them, though not openly. Instead, they sent an ambassador, a Veridani named Zeltor. He arrived on a pristine diplomatic vessel, stepping aboard Horizon's Bane with the careful disdain of someone entering a burning building. Captain Carter, he greeted stiffly. Elias nodded. Ambassador? Zeltor surveyed the ship's interior, wrinkling his elongated features. The Union wishes to understand how, exactly, your crew managed to defeat well-equipped raiders with this vessel. Aiko wiped grease from her hands and grinned. Because we're smarter than them. Zeltor's expression barely shifted. More resourceful, perhaps. He turned to Elias. The Union is reevaluating humanity's role. Some consider this an anomaly. Others see it as evidence of, how do you say, reckless defiance? Elias folded his arms. Defiance against dying? Sure. The ambassador observed him for a long moment. Then, quietly, you'll be watched closely. With that, he left. Martinez exhaled. That went well. Dax grinned. I think they like us. Elias turned to the crew. Let them watch. We're not done yet. Humanity wasn't supposed to survive out here. But now, they weren't just surviving. They were winning. The Galactic Union didn't respond right away. They had given humanity the worst ship in the fleet and expected them to fail. Instead, Horizon's Bane had survived a pirate ambush and sent the attackers running. That wasn't just unexpected. It was an embarrassment. 2 weeks later, the response came in the form of a mission. Not an upgrade, not an apology. A mission. A distress signal had been picked up from an abandoned research station on the edge of a dead star system. The Union claimed it was an old project, one they had meant to decommission but never got around to. Now, they wanted Horizon's Bane to investigate. Elias read the briefing and immediately knew what it was. A test. If they failed, the Union could write them off as a fluke, a one-time anomaly. If they succeeded, well, that was the interesting part. Aiko pushed the engines harder than they'd ever gone, pushing Horizon's Bane through space like a barely contained explosion. Dax fine-tuned the weapons, knowing full well that a distress signal in a dead system meant trouble. Martinez checked the medical supplies and double-checked them again. Brick, as usual, was pessimistic. Congratulations. You've all signed up for a suicide mission. Elias ignored him. Bring up the station's schematics. The holographic display flickered, showing a derelict structure orbiting the dead star. Half of it was inoperable, the other half barely functional. No signs of life, but the distress signal was still active. Aiko narrowed her eyes. Could be a trap. Dax cracked his knuckles. Then let's spring it. They approached with caution, weapons primed. The station loomed ahead, its exterior scorched by solar radiation. No other ships in sight. Just silence. Docking was rough. The automated systems were fried, forcing Aiko to manually guide them in. The airlock groaned as it connected. The moment the doors opened, the smell hit them. Stale air, metallic tang. Something wrong beneath it all. Martinez checked her scanner. No life signs. Elias led the way, Dax covering their backs. The corridors were dark, emergency lights flickering. Walls scarred with plasma burns. Signs of a battle, but no bodies. Brick's voice crackled in their earpieces. Something still drawing power from the core. They followed the signal deeper inside. Doors half-welded shut, consoles shattered. Whatever had happened here, it wasn't a simple evacuation. Then they found the lab. The glass containment units lined the walls, each one cracked or shattered. Inside, remnants of something that had once been alive. Some of them humanoid, some not. Martinez swallowed hard. This wasn't just a research station. Aiko examined the console, her fingers moving quickly. Logs are corrupted, but I can piece together some of it. The Union wasn't studying anomalies. They were creating them. Dax scowled. They were making weapons. Elias stared at the broken containment units. Whatever was in here had either escaped or been destroyed. But if the distress signal was still active, that meant something was still operational. A soft sound echoed through the corridor. Not a mechanical hum. Not the station's failing systems. Breathing. Dax swung his rifle up. A shadow moved at the far end of the lab. Slow. Deliberate. Then the lights flickered and they saw it. Once, it might have been a soldier. Now it was something else. Its armor was fused to its flesh, veins pulsing with an unnatural glow. Its face was half hidden beneath a cracked helmet, but its eyes burned with something that wasn't human anymore. Martinez exhaled. That's not possible. The creature took a step forward, metal scraping against the floor. Then another. Then it charged. Dax fired first. The plasma bolt struck its shoulder, but it didn't slow down. It moved fast, too fast. Aiko barely had time to dive aside before it slammed into the console, shattering it. Elias fired, aiming for the head. This time, the creature staggered. Not dead, but not invincible. Brick's voice cut through the chaos. Power surge detected. Something's waking up. Martinez checked her scanner, eyes widening. The station's self-destruct sequence just activated. Aiko cursed. Of course it did. They didn't have time for a fight. Elias barked orders, and they moved. Dax laid down, suppressing fire, while the others sprinted back toward the ship. The creature roared, lunging after them. But the moment it stepped past the broken console, Aiko triggered an electrical surge. Sparks exploded from the walls, sending it convulsing to the ground. Not dead, but enough to buy them time. They reached the airlock as the station's alarms blared. Lights flashing red. Metal groaning under the strain of whatever the Union had left behind. Aiko practically threw herself into the pilot's seat, disengaging the docking clamps. The ship lurched as they pulled away. Behind them, the station erupted in a silent explosion. For a long moment, no one spoke. Just heavy breathing. The adrenaline still wearing off. Dax was the first to break the silence. So, what the hell was that? Martinez shook her head. Something the Union never wanted us to see. Brick's voice was oddly serious. The Union is going to have a problem with you surviving this. Elias exhaled slowly. Let them. They had been sent to disappear. Instead, they had uncovered something the Union wanted buried. And that meant things were about to get interesting. The message from the Galactic Union came faster than expected. No congratulations. No explanations. Just a single directive. Return to Union space for debriefing. Elias read the message twice, then deleted it. The crew was already gathered on the bridge. No one needed to say it. They all knew what this was. Martinez leaned against the console. They're not calling us back for a chat. Dax nodded. They wanted us dead. We ruined that plan. Now they have to clean up their mess. Aiko didn't look up from the controls. If we go back, we don't come back out. Brick's voice cut in, uncharacteristically sharp. Mathematically, you're already dead. The only question is how long it takes. Elias stared at the display. The coordinates blinking. The Union didn't make threats. They made decisions. And when something became an inconvenience, they erased it. The distress signal, the lab, the thing they had seen. It wasn't just a secret. It was something the Union had been willing to sacrifice an entire station to bury. He exhaled. We don't go back. Martinez frowned. Then where do we go? That was the real question. Running was an option, but not a good one. The Union controlled everything within 100 light years. There was no outrunning them, not forever. But they weren't the only power in the galaxy. Aiko glanced at him. We have the station's data. If we leak it, the Union won't be able to bury this. Dax raised an eyebrow. And what? Hope someone cares. Elias shook his head. Not someone. Everyone. It was a gamble. A reckless, dangerous gamble. But the Union thrived on control, on keeping their secrets buried. If the truth got out, they'd be forced to respond publicly. And that meant they couldn't just make Horizon's bane disappear. Brick made a skeptical noise. You're assuming the galaxy wants the truth. Elias didn't blink. They'll want it if we make them want it. Aiko was already moving. Give me an hour. I'll put together a data burst they can't ignore. The plan was simple. Aiko compiled everything they had. Station logs, research files, the footage from their suit cams. The moment it hit the open networks, every independent faction, every rival power, every warlord and mercenary in the sector would see it. Dax grinned. This is going to piss off a lot of people. Martinez smirked. Good. The transmission went out. No taking it back. No second chances. And then they waited. The Union's response was immediate. A blockade formed at the nearest relay stations, scrambling to contain the spread. But it was too late. The first message came from a Jandari warfleet, then an Arctran syndicate, then a dozen others, each demanding answers. The Union couldn't silence them all. And that's when the real message arrived. Not from the Union, from someone else. The screen flickered, displaying a hooded figure. Their voice was distorted, but the meaning was clear. You have our attention. Elias folded his arms. Who are we speaking to? A pause. Then, the ones who want what you have. Not a promise. Not an alliance. Just an offer. Protection. In exchange for the data. Dax leaned in. So we trade one enemy for another? Elias studied the figure. The Union wanted them dead. This unknown faction wanted them alive. For now. He made his choice. Deal. The transmission cut out. Aiko exhaled. This is either the smartest thing we've done, or the dumbest. Martinez grinned. Probably both. Horizon's Bane turned, setting course for the unknown. They weren't running anymore. They were playing the game.